Brodie and I have been mates for 10 years, and in today's episode, we're going to run you through our journey from being apprentices and working at Macca's to now owning 7 investment properties and what that looks like and how we did it.
In addition to that, we're hosting a bit of a giveaway. So at 100 subscribers on YouTube, we're going to give away 2 of these DeWalt batteries. And at 1,000 subscribers, we're going to give away this bad boy. Everything inside could be yours once we hit 1,000. Just make sure that you send a screenshot to our Instagram. And if you want 3 times the amount of entries, then share it on your story. Good luck.
Welcome back. You're on site with the Property Tradies. And Brodie, we've got a different podcast episode today. We're going to be taking the listeners through our story of becoming mates, working at Macca's together, to becoming tradies, building our $4 million property portfolio, and now running our buyer's agency business, helping tradies invest into property.
Yeah, it's a bit of a funny one. I think as Aussies, you don't really want to talk about yourself too much,
Yeah.
bit of that tall poppy syndrome. But it's probably important to explain to everyone out there that it is possible,
Mhm.
how we did it, and yeah, like it's there's a stigma that getting property and getting ahead through property, even at a young age, which we
Mhm.
were able to do, uh, seems to be made difficult
Yep.
or almost non achievable.
Mhm.
So yeah, really keen to dive into it. Just kind of break down the barriers on how we did it
Mhm.
and make it reachable for everyone out there on site.
Definitely. And especially with being tradies, we'll get into it, but how much you can leverage your trade skills and how we utilize them to our advantage to be able to buy more property. So this one's going to be value packed. Let's get into it. I think it's important to set the scene
Yes.
as to when we first met and how we've become good mates 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I was looking at it the other day from some photos from our Macca's days. So for all the listeners out there, Brodie and I met working at McDonald's at our first job when we were 15, 16 years old.
Yep.
And from there, we started to become really good friends. Initially through work, spending a lot of time flipping burgers, maybe eating a few too many nuggets in the kitchen as well. And that slowly transitioned to, I guess we had similar friends at the time, and we started spending a lot of time partying and going out on the weekends together.
Yeah. It's funny because up until working at Macca's and meeting you, my only real friends were like the ones from school
Yep.
because that's kind of all you know. And then you're exposed to this
Mhm.
world of like, oh, there are other people out here that you can become mates with. You also share values with
Mhm.
these guys as well. Like it's funny, you spoke about going out to parties and stuff, and we would do that, but we'd also wake up the next morning and work at Macca's.
Yep.
And like it was that shared value of, okay, let's have fun, but let's also bust our balls at the same time.
Definitely. And yeah, I think that's the key thing with our friendship group today. And we're very lucky. Most of our friends we met working at Macca's when we were 15 years old. And that's now transitioned into people buying property together, learning from one another, creating businesses together. And I think it's so important for people out there to have the right people in your court. But from Macca's, so that was
Mm.
10 years ago. We both worked there till about 18, 19 years old. And probably from there, we started to become really close friends, I guess, spending every weekend together. I remember so I'm a year older than you.
Yeah.
And when we were 18, so me and a couple of the other guys would be able to go out clubbing, but then you were still 17. So we would do it where I would lend you my car. You could take my car, but you'd have to pick us up from the clubs
Yeah.
after hours.
Mum, if you're watching this, I was not driving underage, but that was the deal. So
Yeah.
Joel and the boys who were a year older, they'd go clubbing, and
Yeah.
I'd go maybe to some friends, female friends' houses, while I had a whip for the night, and then
Yeah.
I'd go pick the boys up,
Yeah.
and yeah, I'd be their Deso home. So everyone was winning in that little scenario there. But yeah, whether it would be sneaking out, jumping the fence, and jumping in your ride, or yeah, picking you up from the club,
Yeah.
we were always getting up to mischief,
Yep.
but yeah, bonding at the same time.
Yeah. Spending every weekend together pretty much, and it really hasn't changed since.
Mm.
From then, from 18 onwards, we've really been super close and built the friendship in many aspects. But after Macca's and creating that friendship, we both went into the workforce. So, do you want to give people some background? You left school and then you went into studying at uni briefly before starting your trade.
Yeah, so I finished year
Mhm.
12 and got into a kind of a uni diploma degree because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And
Yeah.
as at that age, no one really knows what they want to do. And then if you can kind of cast your mind back to being in year 12, they have these people who are like career counselors
Mhm.
and they give you a couple of options and you're just like, nothing fits me here. Like everything you're suggesting, it's not what I want to do. And so it got to a stage I was like, okay, I have this option here for uni.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna take it and figure it out. And it was a cool kind of thing. It was like with the Richmond Football Club and it was like a sports development type course. I'm like, okay, this could be cool. It's hands-on.
Mhm.
That's in my kind of wheelhouse. And then COVID hit
Yeah.
and it kind of fucked everything up.
Yep.
And to kind of fast track a little bit, I wasn't able to do any of that hands-on stuff that was promised to me at the university, like working with the football club. None of that happened.
Mhm.
And so I finished the course. I was in debt with a hex debt with something that I was never going to use
Yep.
and didn't get anything out of. And I decided to pull the trigger. If I'm going to study and learn, I'm going to make money at the same time.
Mhm.
And I decided to start my electrical apprenticeship.
Yeah.
Um,
So when did you start the electrical apprenticeship? Was it 2020 or 2021?
It would have,
So
yeah,
COVID
it was
was
one of those. I
yeah.
think it would have been 2021.
Yeah.
I'd say I was working with the family business at the same time,
Mhm.
which was like low voltage cabling, so CCTV. Um,
Yeah. So
you
doing
know,
that on the
doing
side
that
on
on the
weekends.
side. So like I'd study and then I'd do that on weekends on the side,
Yeah.
and that was kind of my form
Yeah.
of income.
With Macca's as well still?
Yeah, I did do a little
Yeah.
bit of Macca's as well. And so yeah, a couple different jobs and then decided to kind of pull the trigger on
Mhm.
getting my full apprenticeship because I was already working with cables. This
Yeah.
time I just was going to work with deadlier ones.
Yeah.
And yeah, kind of go down that path and like I said, study, get that underneath me
Mhm.
and it would be the ultimate fallback plan.
Yeah.
So, but what about yourself?
Yeah, so I guess COVID was a big transition time. So we'll get into that shortly with
Mm,
us starting our own business. But for myself, finished year 12 and yeah, again, very similar to you, had no idea what I wanted to do. I was always interested in investing, finances, but didn't really apply myself in school and wasn't interested in uni. The only thing I did apply for at uni was property development, which I could have done, but I decided against going to uni. I wanted to get out of school and start earning money straight away. So I remember finishing school and thinking, where the hell do I go from here? And naturally, I fell into working with my mate doing roof tile removing. So my mate started a business straight out of school. His old man ran a roof tile restoration business and had a roof tile yard. So what we would do is houses that were getting demolished, we'd strip off all the roof tiles, put them onto pallets, and then get a truck driver to pick them up. And then my mate would sell them to the roof tile yards. And he started doing uni at the same time. So he had his fingers in a few pies while I was still figuring it out. He'd go to uni 3 days a week, and I'd basically run that ship with another guy. Um, he hired this guy, this immigrant from Nepal, and he was probably like 4'8", and I can just remember. So you'd have to have the roof tile trolley thing that goes up and down off the roof.
yeah.
And every time, like it was pretty heavy when you
Mm.
get it back onto the top of the ute, but he couldn't reach. So I'd have to be doing it solo because he just couldn't reach. So it was a real rogue operation.
Yeah.
But I'm really grateful that I actually did that for a year out of school because it was grueling work. But it instilled a really good work ethic into me, which then led me on to my plumbing apprenticeship.
Mm.
So about a year of doing the roof tile removing, got offered a plumbing apprenticeship. Now, I never wanted to be a tradie, but in Melbourne, we have the unions and these apprenticeships are really high paying. So I thought, well, it'd be silly not to take this opportunity.
Mm.
It was my ex's old man at the time got me the job. And I still remember getting onto site for the first few weeks and I couldn't I couldn't imagine how easy it was compared to the roof tile removing,
Yeah.
which in hindsight it was really good that I did that in the first place because it made the next job quite easy. And then yeah, spent the 4 years doing my plumbing apprenticeship. But before we get a little bit further down the line, Brody, I
Mm.
think it's super important to talk about the next phase in our relationship
Okay. Yeah.
and the first business that we started together.
Yeah.
So do you want to take us back to COVID? So big turning point in both of our lives. I'd gotten out of a relationship.
Mhm.
You had a career that you weren't interested in doing
Mm.
anymore. And we would spend our time in COVID working out together.
Yeah. So wow, really, really thinking back, what a time! We almost don't want to think back because of the time it was,
Yeah.
but there were ups and downs, and this
Mhm.
was one of the ups, I'd say, in the relationship. So to kind of set the scene, I
Mhm.
was getting beat down bad at work.
Yeah.
I was in my first year as an electrical apprentice,
Yeah.
but wasn't doing any electrical. So
Mhm.
for any apprentices out there who can kind of sympathize with me, you are the absolute shit kicker,
Mhm.
and sometimes you're just labor for hire. And at that time, I was literally labor for hire. I wasn't working domestic at that time. I was kind of union-ish.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I was just literally running these 100 mil conduits
Yeah.
in the ground for the freeway upgrade out in the southeast.
Yeah.
And I used to call myself a glorified plumber,
Yeah.
just a glorified plumber, because I wasn't running any cables through it. I wasn't fitting off anything.
Mhm.
It was just digging trenches, laying down the conduits, filling it back over.
Yeah.
I hated it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I remember I was down in the dumps, and my missus at the time messaged you because
Yeah.
I don't know, clearly she wasn't getting through to me. And she goes, "Joel, you need to have a chat to Brodie. Like he's pretty down bad. Like just figure it out,"
Yeah.
kind of thing. Anyway, so you invited me over to gym,
Yeah.
and because you couldn't really do much. I don't even think we were allowed to see each other, but
No.
I'd go around to your house. You had a bit of a home gym, and
Mhm.
we'd start gymming and scheming and chatting, and that was, relationship even building more there. And
Yeah.
I went to you, I said, "Joel, I need more money. I'm not enjoying what I'm doing." And this is such an eye-opening thing. He goes, "Well, what skills do you have?" Well, you
Mhm.
said, "What skills do you have?" And I said, "Well, like I can run cables, like I can fit off cameras because that was my past job. I still did it on the weekends." He goes, "Okay, are you qualified in that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got a license." He's like,
Mhm.
"All right, do that,
Mhm.
like on the weekends." Okay, sick. And so I started thinking about it, and then I remember like a week later, you were like, "Do you want to do it together?"
Yeah.
Like fucking oath, I want to do it together. I
Yeah.
don't want to do this shit on my own.
100%.
And so from that point on, certified CCTV was born.
Yeah, certified CCTV. So that was our very first business scheme, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
together. And it came at a really awkward time with COVID, but for us, it was the time that made the most sense. So basically, Brodie's had the experience with the security cameras in the family business. And then I guess I started doing the promotion for us, setting up our Instagram, setting up everything that you need to
Mm.
run a small business. And we started promoting on Facebook community groups
Yeah.
through COVID. And we just researched many different ways that we could do it. And that was basically the only method that we were going with. But because everyone was at home and they were thinking about security at the
Mm.
time and looking at things around the house, it just worked out that these posts on the community groups really worked. And
Mm.
I remember the first week or two, we were just driving around after work and weekends, quoting up probably, I don't know, 10,
Yeah.
10 jobs a week
Easily.
easily.
Yeah.
And obviously our skills at closing jobs weren't the best, but we were still getting work. And then yeah, started running the business.
Yeah.
So I remember our first day. I'll let
Don't.
you paint the picture.
Oh, bloody. If any of you know Joel, then you'll understand where I'm coming from. If you don't know Joel, you're about to learn a thing or two. So sometimes, and he's gotten better at this, but he used to get very much in over his head
Yeah.
and thought anything was achievable.
Yeah.
And so, mind you, this is our first day ever, like working in this company that
Yeah.
we've created.
I've personally never touched a cable.
He's
in my
never
life.
touched a cable. He's never fit off a camera. He's never ran anything in his life, and he's using some of the tools for the first time ever.
Yeah.
Anyway, and so I'm like, it normally takes X amount of hours. We'll probably just do one job for the day, get a feel for it. He's like, "Nah, we're booking in 2 jobs for the first time ever." He's never done anything, and so we book in 2 jobs. They're like, I don't know,
they're not even close to each other.
No.
One was in like Whoop Whoop. The second
Yeah.
job was in Whoop Whoop. Anyway, cut a long story short, we ended
Mm.
up finishing at like 9 p.m. that night.
Yeah.
Had friends waiting for us because we
Yeah.
were supposed to go out.
Yep.
And anyway, I'm crawling in a roof, like pretty much cracking the shits at Joel because he thought anything was possible. And how hard can it be to run a camera?
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway,
So yeah, we started at like 8 or 9 in the morning,
yeah.
thinking, oh yeah, like, we'll finish around 5. We brought our stuff with us to go straight to our mates, and then head out afterwards. And I can remember sitting there at the second job, and it's dark, and I'm trying to do something that I have no idea, and you're pissed at me. So I'm coming to you. I'm like, I don't want to ask him how to do this because he's just going to rinse me. And anyway, we get the job done. There were some issues, but I remember getting back to our mate's house, and our kids like were filthy, dirty, been crawling in the roofs, and yeah, then getting changed and going out.
Dude, the learning experiences that we took from that company alone,
Yep.
crazy. Like how to deal with customers, how to be on time, how to run a
Invoice.
ship,
Yeah.
like everything. And we were doing this after hours. Like we would sometimes do jobs literally after work, after
Yeah.
working a full-time day, an 8-hour day. And so it's things like that that I look back on and I go, shit, it really did instill like an insane ethic. God,
Yeah.
getting mumbled up, but and it just translates into whatever you do from there on.
Yep.
And you almost don't realize at the time, but you're adding these blocks to
Yep.
your life or your
Yeah.
level. And then
Gathering infinity
you
stones.
exactly. Oh, I love that. You're gathering infinity stones, but
Exactly
you
right.
don't realize. And then when you eventually do the thing that you're meant to do, or
Mhm.
the thing that you enjoy the most, it becomes that much easier.
Yeah, you're well equipped to take it on and succeed. And I think that is a hard thing when you're younger because everything you view in the short term, it's very hard to have long term thinking. But when you get to the position to where we are today and you look back in hindsight, it's every little thing that you do that gets you to a certain point.
Mm.
But with the business, we would work on the side, but we'd be doing overtime in our day-to-day jobs, and then we'd work the jobs with the business around that. So we're working 50, 60-hour weeks in our regular jobs, and then we're tacking on a couple of jobs a week on a weekend or after hours to save for deposits. At the time, we didn't necessarily know if it was property, but that quickly then did transition into the next phase, which was the property phase.
Yeah, yeah, it was the property phase, wasn't it? So, I mean, you're probably more well equipped to talk about this because you were first cab off the rank.
Yep.
But yeah, definitely an inspiration you were to me. So
Mhm.
I'd love you to tell everyone how that played out.
Yep. So we started running the business in 2021, and that would have been at the start of the year or early in the year. Then for the next year and a half, as we started the business, I was just thinking, okay, we're earning this money, or I'm earning this money. We've now got to start putting this money to use and learning everything about stocks, crypto, property. And that's the beautiful thing about being a tradie. It was headphones in every day on site, listening to podcasts like this. Hopefully, people out there are listening while they're working and getting inspiration from. And that just got the mind thinking about what's possible and what people are doing outside of the immediate people in my life. And that quickly grew a passion for property and wanting to get my first investment. So then at the back end of 2022 was when I made the first purchase after a year and a half, 2 years of educating myself, 6 months of sitting on the fence, I guess being worried, missing out on getting into Adelaide, which has been a really good growth market. And yeah, bought the first property. So with looking back at that time, I had around 90 to $100,000 in the bank, and I think looking back, I'm super grateful that I had a lot of conversations with brokers and accountants to learn the finance game before I started, and I was able to strategize a plan for the first two properties. So I was in a very fortunate position. My dad went guarantor loan
Mm.
on my first property.
So
So
just to hit the brakes on that,
mhm.
can you explain what a guarantor loan is?
Yeah. So a guarantor loan is when a parent or a family member puts up equity from their home to guarantee the deposit. So basically, what it means is you don't have to put up any money. You can add the stamp duty, which is the tax on the
Okay.
purchase,
Yep.
to the loan, and you don't have to put up any money to the bank. So if you have the borrowing capacity, basically you can buy a property for virtually nothing. Obviously, there's some costs with buying property, but you're looking at $5,000 to $10,000
It's literally a cheat code.
cheat code.
If you have anyone, whether it be a parent or grandparent
Mhm.
or rich uncle, whatever it is, if you can get them to go guarantor and
Yep.
you can show them that, like, kind of the way you did it, right? So your dad trusted you. And if you want to touch on that, he wouldn't have just done it for anyone. Obviously, you're his son, but
Correct. Well, yeah, there was a bit of work
oh,
involved with convincing dad. It wasn't like, "Hey, dad, can you do this?" And it was yes.
yeah,
My dad is of the old school mindset, very against debt.
mm,
Still gets his cash out every week. So the concept to him was new. So that's why I knew I had to strategize a very thorough plan
mm,
to show him that I'm very clear of what I'm wanting to do here,
yeah,
and there's reasoning behind it as well. So strategized the plan with the accountants and the brokers, went to dad, took a while to get him over the line, but eventually got the approval and bought that first property. And then I knew I had my money in the bank there.
yeah.
So I knew straight away I could buy property number two.
Yeah, unbelievable. So no property down, no money down on number one
Number one,
because
yep.
they went guarantor. You still had all those savings that you had worked hard for,
Yep.
90 to 100K. You went, I'm going to pull the trigger again.
Yep.
Mind you guys, Joel is very ambitious. Like we touched on this before. He goes harder than your average Joe. And
Yeah.
there are people out there who will want to match that. And there are
Definitely.
other people out there who just want to, take it easy because it's property.
Of course.
But I'd almost rather follow I'd rather watch someone like Joel and then learn from the mistakes if there are any.
Yeah.
And if it works out, then I'm gonna follow him.
Definitely. I've always been of the mindset, I don't know whether it's just naturally or it's something that I learned, that I need to touch the fire to learn. But I, I'm very good at taking things in my stride. Like if it goes bad, okay, cool, we just move on to the next thing. So
Yeah, definitely. You have to understand what kind of a person you are,
yeah,
and you understood that you're the kind of person who can can have a calm head on his
mhm,
shoulders if things do go wrong.
yep,
And there are obviously things that do go wrong in property. If you're someone who's a bit of a
100%.
stress head, then that probably isn't the approach that is best for you.
Definitely. So first property bought at the back end of 2022, $410,000, virtually no money down in Perth.
Mm,
That was with a main lender, Commonwealth Bank. That's who I had to do the guarantor loan through. And yeah, had a sharp interest rate. But then with the strategy I built with the mortgage broker is I only had a very small amount of capacity for purchase number two because of my income.
gotcha.
And I had to go with a third tier lender. So if you don't know what a third tier lender is, it's not one of the main banks. They will charge you a higher interest rate, but they'll basically give you more lending to buy property. So straight away, I remember I settled on the property and I literally rang the broker the same day and I was saying, "Hey, can we just double check these numbers on the purchase?"
Mm,
Because I had to strategize what purchase price I had to go with for number one to leave enough for number two.
yeah.
I wanted to buy two in Perth, but it just wasn't viable at the
Hmm.
price point. So then, yeah, within the next 2 months, I was under contract for property number two in regional Queensland. Basically, used all of my savings, and the purchase price was 367,500.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to be
To be
precise.
exact.
Yeah.
There you
So
go. So and what was that span of time between one and two?
I settled on number one in September 2022, I think. And then I was under contract in November 2022. So
Jeez.
September, October, November. So yeah, 2 month
Yeah.
span. And then number two settled in January.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I remember buying it and going under contract and heading out for some drinks with mates.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, knowing that I had the rest of the time off work
Hmm.
to think about the properties and do all my cash flow and all that type of jazz as well.
Yeah. So I think some nuggets to take out of that
Mhm.
story is plan. You can't just jump into property and expect it to be all sunshine and rainbows, especially if you want to do well, which you have. So there's a lot of planning that went into the success of that, and
Yeah.
also just the purchases in themselves. Because a regular person or a regular listener out there on site, they could probably only pull the trigger on one.
Mhm.
But because you planned, you found out what a guarantor loan was, you convinced your
Mhm.
dad, you figured out how much you will need for the second property,
Yep.
you were able to actually pull the trigger on two.
Mhm.
And what two can do in terms of a snowball effect compared to one,
Yep.
it's just set you up, in great stead.
Correct. And looking back in hindsight, we'll go into the figures of the purchases later, but I wouldn't be at 5 properties now
Mm.
if I hadn't have pushed early and done that
Yep.
and got the growth with those properties. But l- now I've got my first 2 properties, Brody, and you're seeing me, I guess,
Mm.
do a lot of this.
Yep.
And I'm someone that is very vocal about what I'm doing, and more from a perspective of, oh, you should look into this as well. Then comes your first purchase.
Yeah. So, like you said, you were always open to talk about these
Mhm.
things, and you never gate kept
Mhm.
anything, which is, I think, awesome. We
Mhm.
need more of that in
Mhm.
in the work site and in just Australian society as a a general consensus. Um, my parents were property investors,
Yep.
but I wouldn't say that they were deep at data analysis, like really understood the ins and outs. Like they were
Mhm.
just mum and dad investors, but they did really well for themselves. So they had maybe 4 investment properties,
Yep.
and of course the owner occupier as well. So I always knew that property investment was something that I was not only wanted to do, but I knew I would do it.
Mhm.
It's just a matter of time when and how and all that kind of stuff. And so at the time we've always spoken about I was an apprentice, and I had transitioned into domestic because
Mhm.
I got sick of being a quote unquote plumber and
Yep.
just laying down conduit in the ground. So I decided I wanted to move on to domestic work and
Yep.
actually learn. And I think this is the thing about you and I, we're always planning and always scheming, and we're always figuring out you know, what our lives are going to look like
Mhm.
ahead of time. And so at that point, I had decided to go to domestic because I had the family business, which was CCTV and alarms and all that.
Yep.
And I thought I might be able to bring an electrical side to that.
Yep.
So that was another reason why I was doing
Mhm.
my apprenticeship. Anyway, I'm doing domestic. I'm earning a lot less, and property is just not even in my vision
Mhm.
at all. I knew I wanted to do it eventually, but in that current time frame,
Yeah.
I didn't even think it was
No.
possible. I might like to set like I was earning $16 an hour,
Yeah.
like which isn't much more than I was earning at Macca's,
No.
right? So on absolute pennies. And then you were kind of laying it all out and you said, hey, this is what you can do. And I was still kind of like, but I can't do it. I'm an apprentice. I'm not
Yeah.
earning enough.
This doesn't make sense from
This
what I've been
doesn't
told and heard.
exactly. And like I had some savings. I might have had like, I don't know, 60K,
Yeah.
something like that at the time because I'd worked hard and I'd
Mm.
saved even harder. And I was very grateful to my parents because I didn't have to pay for much. And if you're in a similar position to what I was, and I know you were in at the same,
Yep.
if your parents do pay for a lot of things, especially at that younger age, then this was my point of view. I wanted to do the absolute best I could to
Mhm.
put myself in a position
Yeah.
to make them to make what they've given me worth it.
100%.
Yeah. And so anyway, I'm rambling at this point, but you had said something that really resonated with
Mhm.
me. And what it was is just go have a chat to a broker.
Yep.
You don't know what's possible.
Yep.
I thought, okay, well, I got nothing to lose. You had explained to me that brokers are free.
Yep.
I didn't know that at the time.
Mhm.
So I've learnt that I can go have a chat with this professional who can tell me either a yes or no,
Mhm.
and it's free.
Yep.
No worries. I'm going to go do that.
Yep.
What do you know? I can borrow enough to buy my first property.
There you go.
So yeah, super exciting.
Yeah, very important lesson with what you just said. And that's why I drummed just that conversation into you as well. And for anyone listening out there, if you're thinking about investing in property and you don't think you're close, go and have that conversation straight away, because that was the mistake I made early on.
Mm,
And looking back on the markets I missed out on getting in, I could have bought 6, 12 months earlier, but because I had that preconceived thought in my head that I couldn't borrow and I couldn't buy a property, I didn't do it. And then when I had the conversation and I realized that my situation hadn't really changed too much from 6 to 12 months prior,
mm,
I was kicking myself. So anyone out there, go and have that conversation with a broker. But back into your purchase, Brodie. So we started learning, educating one another with property, and
Yeah.
you were actually debating whether or not to buy a house and land package because your
Yes.
parents had gone down that route, or go with Joel's investing philosophy.
So yeah, this was a big kind of seesaw moment in my life. And I'm glad I ended up making the decision I did because for reasons we'll touch on later in the potty. But pretty much I was at a crossroads. Do I go down the path that my parents went, who had 4 or 5 properties at the time? Or do I go down and, had been investing for 20 plus years?
Yeah, seems to make a fair
Seems
case.
like that's a fair case. And, I can use everyone that they used.
Mhm.
Or do I go down the route that my 23-year-old 23 at the time, probably best mate, who has owned 2 properties for about 11 months. Do I follow his lead and go
Yeah.
down the route he did? And I decided, I'll make the decision for myself, and I'll at least
Hear out
learn
both
and
sides.
hear out both sides and educate myself as best I can.
Mhm.
And after educating myself in hours and hours and hours of research and education and podcasts and everything, I had decided that your method of investing
Yep.
made more sense
Mhm.
in the long term rather than what theirs were. And I guess when you kind of nail it back, they had 4 or 5 properties and they were at the age of 50.
Mhm.
I wanted more than that. And
Yeah.
I also learnt that you can achieve a lot more than that.
Mhm.
And they were of an investing style where it's like negative gearing, get depreciation, all that comes along with the house and land package. I actually remember my dad saying to me one day, he's like, why would you buy an existing house when you can just build a new house
Yeah.
and it's brand new, it's not going to have any problems, you can claim it more on tax.
Yeah.
And to the everyday person, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And that's how they get you. And that's how those house and land package people, con the average person that's not interested in learning and digging deeper into buying that type of asset.
But we know the people listening to this podcast right now, they aren't those kind of people.
Definitely.
And they are willing to pull back the curtains
Yep.
like I did and actually learn a little like how investing and the whole snowball effect of asset accumulation, it all works.
Yep.
And so there's no point owning a property that costs you money forever
Yep.
and is negatively geared forever. And that's when I learned about positive and negatively gearing.
Yep.
And I decided to go down your route, aim for as positive as possible, or at least become positive down the line.
Yep.
And I bought my first property in regional Queensland as well.
Yep. So that was a $425,000 purchase price. You've absolutely maxed out everything you had. Unfortunately, couldn't go with the guarantor loan because your parents had property and they didn't have equity to give up.
Yep.
And then I remember at that same time as well, that was actually quite a pivotal moment for me because as I was teaching you everything and learning more as well, I kind of had in my head that 2 properties, cool, I'm chilling. I'm going to go travel for a year or 2. Like I've kind of made it, so to speak.
You've
Like
made
that's what I genuinely thought in my head. But as I was teaching you and telling you, oh, go have that chat with the broker, it kind of brought everything back to me.
Yep.
And I wasn't planning on purchasing again at the time. And I had that chat with the broker and we were again, we've gone from 3rd to 4th year. We're earning money in the business, doing heaps of overtime. I was in a position to buy again. I'd had growth in my first 2 properties. And then it was like, oh, okay, well, let's join Brodie. And we ended up buying pretty much at the same time in the same location. My purchase price was $500,000. I'd saved money in that time. I'd and used equity from the first 2 purchases.
Yeah, there are just so many golden nuggets in this chat that we're having, but complacency, you became complacent.
Yep.
And complacency will get anyone.
100%.
People who haven't invested or people who have invested.
Yep.
And you thought you'd made it, but you realize, fuck, I haven't made it. Like I can keep going and keep pushing the envelope. And that it's those kind of people who will eventually get off the tools.
100%. And it taught me probably one of the most valuable lessons, which I know we really talk about in our own business and life, is just stripping things back to the basics.
Mm.
Like I'm telling you the basic things,
Yep.
but I'm not doing them myself.
Yep.
I literally go and do the most basic thing you can think of, chatting to a broker, and that opens up the doors. And I think it's very easy. I know myself, I struggle with it personally, but trying to overcomplicate things in life, it's really, if you do the basics, they're the basics for a reason. They're the most important things that you need to do. Whether it's, being on site and working overtime to then, just having a conversation.
Yeah. And so I had purchased my first property,
Yep.
and I had done that on an apprentice wage,
Yep.
earning, I think it was like 60K a year.
Yeah.
I had saved like 80 or so thousand in the bank.
Mhm.
The lending was, I think I got lent like 370 odd
Yeah.
thousand. So I had to cover the rest.
Yep.
And it's, I just cannot stress enough. It doesn't matter whether you're working in the union and making great coin
Yep.
and utilizing it to its full ability, which
Mhm.
you did, and credit to you for doing
Mhm.
that, or if you're working, in a 2-3 man domestic, team
Yep.
out in the suburbs, and you're on maybe not as good a coin as what
Yeah.
others are, but you're a hard saver and you're a hard worker.
Yeah.
It can still be done.
It can still be done. And I think that's why it's really good speaking about both of our stories and pathways. Like I was earning a strong income being a union plumber, and you were earning, the award rate,
Mm.
but we were still both able to buy property and do something and have a little side business and work overtime. So guys, the key thing is just having those conversations and saying, okay, what do I need to do to get there? And then going and doing it.
Yeah, 100%. So I want to just quickly bring up something else, because I reckon it was around this time. We had another business. So
Yes.
so the CCTV business kind of like fizzled out. Like we were getting super busy
Yep.
in life and with our main jobs. Like I know I was taking on more responsibility as I became a third year, I think. And you would have been a fourth year qualified at that time.
Yep.
So we were taking on more responsibility at work,
Yeah.
and we stopped certified CCTV. But we went on this camping trip,
Mhm.
and I had bought this little frisbee thing
Yeah.
off Temu, right? Off Temu. And I brought it on camping, and we're just throwing it around. It's like, it's the size of a coaster around about. And we're just throwing it around, and it just zips through the air. It's almost like skimming a rock,
Mhm.
but in air.
Mhm.
And do you remember the feeling of throwing this little frisbee around?
the description of the feeling, or
The feeling, and
I
then
do remember.
also the feeling between us boys and,
Yeah.
and what happened from there.
Yes. Yeah.
So we're throwing it around, and just to kind of set the scene, we're a bunch of lads, and there was like 3 or 4 of us, 3 specifically, and we're always thinking, what's the next best thing?
Yeah. Business
How can we make more
ideas.
money?
Yeah.
Business, business, business. And we're throwing this thing around, and we go, we could make a fortune off this. We need to get these frisbees in more kids' hands. And that's when the Disby was born.
Disby started. So yeah, as you said, another one of our schemes, and it's a great story because this thing went absolutely nowhere. Nowhere at all. A lot of time was spent, but again, when we were talking about gathering the infinity stones,
Yep.
we learnt how to create content on social media.
Yes.
And if you looked at the time, like we were filming content and posting stuff and learning how to set up Shopify stores and all these little things, and really, made virtually no money off it.
Mhm.
But
We
again,
actually lost money.
yeah, we actually lost money. But again, you're learning all these little skills along the way. You got the security camera business, the Disby business, and that then leads us into the next venture, which is where we are now. So 2 years ago, we started the investment side at Tommy.
Yeah, so Tommy
In-
Buyers Agents, which
Yes.
we are proud to be a part of, proud partners of at the moment. And I guess a little bit about Tommy is it's was run by 2 really great blokes,
Yep.
James and Tristan, and they had a focus on owner occupier purchasing
Yep.
for their clients.
So people buying homes,
Buying their dream
in
home.
Melbourne.
Yeah, in Melbourne. So if you were a super busy individual and you didn't have time to hunt for a property, and you wanted someone to to find the right property for you, that for
Mhm.
you and your family to live in, you'd go to them.
Yep.
Right. And we had started this course and this another course
Mm.
for another venture. And this was, becoming a buyer's agent, because we had both fell in love with the process of buying property,
Yep.
and it had done wonders for us at the time, and we just couldn't believe
Mhm.
the amount of opportunity that property could bring people.
Yep.
And we were kind of, and you were more so heavy as always, more so jamming down my throat, and you said, Brodie, like this is us.
Yep.
There's nothing better than this. We have to give it a go.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, let's paint the picture then and go back. So at the back end of 2024, midway through, I remember that whole year I was playing footy at the time, and I really wanted to get into the buyers agency space with you, Brodie, and I'd started helping friends, family, other blokes on site buy property, and
Mm.
that's where the passion really grew. And I knew this is what I wanted to do, and you'd started investing and loving the process. And then it was basically as soon as I finished footy for the year, I remember I was at presentation and I was basically saying to everyone, look, I'm not playing next year. I'm starting this business. And I was just speaking to one of the other guys and he said, oh, I know this guy, James, he has his buyer's agency business. You should have a chat. And that's how everything
Yeah.
came about. And basically from there, we jumped into things straight away. We obviously got our qualifications, and
Mm.
then we decided that we wanted to work specifically with tradies, because when we started investing into property, and which is why we made this podcast,
Mm.
there wasn't anything out there speaking to us as tradies, and no one that understood what it's like being on the tools, and how important creating wealth is. So we wanted to fill that gap that was out there in the trades investing space.
Yeah, and that's how the Property Tradies was created, right?
Correct.
And so it started on Instagram, and it started just with these funny skits
Yeah.
and these educational kind of talking to camera, all different types of videos.
Yep.
And at first, I think people would look at it and be like, what the fuck are these boys doing?
Yeah.
But you know what's funny? We touched on that little Disby side business, and
Yep.
because we used to put ourselves out there trying to sell this product that didn't sell,
Mhm.
it made it so much easier when we were actually passionate about something and we were really serious about starting this new business in property.
Yep.
How much easier did it make it?
Yeah, way easier, especially getting in front of the camera. Like it is very hard
Mm,
getting in front of the camera, because you're always thinking, oh, what are the people saying about me? What are they thinking about me? And no doubt people are going to talk about you, but I think it takes probably 3 to 6 months to get over that. And then once you break that wall, I guess so many other opportunities open up because you've lost that fear.
yeah. So
Um,
we'd started the Property Tradies. We had done our course on buyer's agency,
yeah,
and we had joined Tommy Buyers Agents
correct.
because we wanted to do
Yep,
investment buyers agency, and they didn't have an investment arm.
correct.
You had somehow or another had mutual relations with James, and
Yep,
it was just a twist of fate that it was all working out.
yep,
On top of that, we literally grew up in the same location but didn't know each other.
yep.
James went to your primary school.
Yeah, so James and I went to the same primary school, but there's about a 15-year gap.
Yep.
Obviously, you and I virtually have grown up in the same areas. And then Tristan, the other partner, also grew up in the same area. So it was kind of just a massive coincidence how everything just made sense.
Mm.
And we just all got along really well. And that relationship and business has developed over the last 2 years. But so back end of 2024, started the business, started helping people buy property.
Yep.
But we were still working on the tools in our full-time jobs.
Well, this is where the Infinity Stones, they're all building up to something, right?
Yep.
And so because we were so used to busting our ass, whether it be overtime at work
Mhm.
or whether it would also be working on the CCTV business, after our regular work,
Yeah.
it came natural to
Yep.
us to do a full day of trades work on
Yep.
site and then come home and work on the business.
Yeah. So working 70-hour weeks, but it was just changing the things that we're doing. So we'd be up 5 every morning, out to site, home by 3, 4. I know personally I'd get in a 30-minute to hour workout, and then it'd be straight to your place
Yep.
where we had our own office set up, and we'd be working on the business, working on creating content, working on, buying properties for clients, working on the back end, everything that comes with running a buyer's agency business, we'd be working on. And Then at the same time as well, to throw another spanner in the
Yep.
works, we bought our fifth, sixth, and seventh properties.
Yes.
So started the business back into 2024. Then the start of 2025, we were both in a position to buy again.
Yep.
So we both, and this time we really needed cash flow in our
Yes.
portfolio. So we decided to buy our first units.
Yes.
So we both bought in the same location. I bought 2 units under the one title. It's a really, really good deal. And then you bought a unit as well, focusing on yield.
Yeah, and you know what? It's about buying what is best available to you.
Yep.
And so once again, I didn't have the greatest borrowing capacity ever because I was still on an apprentice wage. Although I was working weekends, I just didn't have that amount that sorry, the banks just wouldn't lend me
Mhm.
a crazy amount of money, just
Yep.
to put it simply. And so the best available asset I could get was a unit,
Mhm.
like you said. And so then it comes down to what is the best type of unit I can buy.
Mhm.
And we had done a lot of research, a lot of knowledge, and we kind of just gained an understanding that if we can't get as much land as possible because it's land that holds the value, we then want to get a unit that is a part of a small complex or a small block.
Yeah.
And so my second purchase ended up being a one of four. So it was a standalone unit
Mhm.
in a complex of four.
Yep. And mine was the same in a complex of 4, but it was 2 of the units in that complex. And this again comes back to, pushing the portfolio
Mm,
early days because again, I was able to pull out equity from property number 1 and 2
mm,
and use that to buy 4 and 5 again. So that early stage of pushing the boundaries
mm.
set me up to be able to keep moving forward there. And I know the same was for you utilizing some equity
Yep.
to get that deposit for that second
Well,
purchase.
it's a super important thing to touch on because we wouldn't have been able to purchase them if we
Mhm.
didn't have those prior properties.
Correct.
And this is the whole compounding nature of property. If you
Mhm.
get the first one right, the second one becomes easier. If you
Mhm.
get the second one right, the third one becomes even easier because you got two that are growing. And it just snowballs, guys. That's why it's so important to nail these purchases.
Exactly right. So it's not just about pushing the boundaries
Yep.
if you don't buy in the right areas.
Hmm.
Buying in the right location is 80 to 90% of everything. If you bought the shittest house in Perth in the worst location 5 years ago, compared to on paper what looks like a great investment in Melbourne, you still would have made more money on that Perth purchase. So it's location, location, location. Um, and then after those purchases, Brodie, shortly after, we were in a position with the business where we were able to leave our full-time jobs and go into this business full-time. And now we're sitting here today with the podcast.
Yeah, it was kind of a like a weird moment where we literally got off the tools,
Mhm.
but we didn't because we just swapped our tools.
Yeah.
We swapped the impact driver and spanner for you, pliers for me,
Yeah.
for a laptop and iPad and a car driving out to the inspections, all that kind of stuff. But the reason why it doesn't feel like we fully left it is
Mhm.
because our focus and our client focus was still tradies
Yeah,
because that's who we connect with the best,
definitely.
right? And I know personally when I'm working with our clients, they are such a breeze just because I can communicate with them
Yeah.
like I would a mate down,
Mm,
like, at the pub.
exactly right.
And so when you've got that barrier broken
Mhm.
between, client and buyer's agent, it makes the experience one
Mhm.
so much better,
Yep.
but two, you can actually learn about property. Like the client, sorry, can learn about property a lot easier because that professional, like that ultra professional barrier isn't there.
Yeah. And we understand we've been in that position where we don't know anything. We're listening to these podcasts and hearing all these big words. And
Mm,
so we know what it's like being in that position. And yeah, it's really good being able to speak to people just like you are a mate, like we
yeah.
were having that conversation when I was explaining property to you
Mm,
before you bought for the first time. And I think we've got the best clients in the space
by far.
by a country mile, like
Mm,
working with tradies. And helping them, and we've got some site talks coming up. We did a
Yep.
chat at an Apprentices meetup in Gippsland recently. Um, yeah, they're our people, and they're who we're going to continue to work and focus um, helping. And we can also talk from the levers that we were able to pull from, the overtime and the business stuff, and um, giving them guidance on what you can do to keep moving forward.
We and additionally, we also understand that not property is not every tradie's bread and butter.
Yep.
Right. So they might build the properties, but investing in it and wanting
Mhm.
to learn all that. We know there are so many guys and gals out there who just go, I want someone to
Yeah.
kind of show me the ropes or do it for me.
Yeah.
I love being a sparky. I love being a plumber. I love being a chippy. I love what I do.
Mhm.
This isn't really for me. Perfect. Let us come in and do it because we have a real passion for it. We
Mhm.
understand how to do it at an extremely high level.
Yep.
They're the kind of people that we love working with as well.
Yep. Beautiful. Well, that's the story of where we are today, from where we've come from. Hopefully that gave all the listeners a lot of value, and gave them some more insight as to who we are as people and where
Yeah.
we've come from. And I think let's do a quick snapshot of the portfolio, where it sits
Yeah. Good
today
idea.
with us, to give you guys hopefully some inspiration as to what can be done. And again, this was 7 properties in 3 years for us together. So the total purchase price of the portfolio over the 7 properties was just over 2.6 million, and now the current portfolio value sits at 3.965 million. So we'll round that up to 4 million. We got the valuations a couple months ago, so we'll go with 4 million. So if we're looking it has now been 4 years since we started the portfolio, but we've got $1.4 million worth of equity between us in a 4-year period, which is amazing. And again, when you invest into property, like, I'm still fairly broke on paper. Like, I don't have, 300 grand sitting in the bank or anything like that. And that does come with pushing the boundaries. But again, if you're out there, hopefully you can take that as some inspiration. And if you are wanting help strategizing and building your portfolio, there is a link to book a call in the notes in the description. And also you can find us on Instagram at the Property Tradies, and book in a chat with me, and we can start scheming.
Yeah. Super excited to work with people out there who are ready to have a go. We already know you work hard as shit. It's just time to put that effort into something that can really make your life easier in the future.
Exactly right. And build your team, whether it is working with us or another buyer's agent. Make sure you find the right accountant that you connect with, the mortgage broker, the buyer's agent. Assemble the team. You keep working hard in your day-to-day job, earn more money, and then we can put that into practice with a portfolio plan and start building your asset base from there.
Love it.
Beautiful. Well, let's finish it off, Brodie. We've got the rapid fire questions. I'll ask you 4, you ask me 4, and then we'll wrap up the potty. So first one, Brodie, you bought 2 properties while earning an award wage as a Sparky apprentice. How the hell did you actually make that work?
Great question. Overtime, Saturday work was the biggest one.
Mhm.
So at that second income from like the family business, that was the biggest one. So if you are on the award wage, you have to figure out how to boost that income,
Yep.
or else your borrowing capacity just probably won't cut the cake.
Yeah, because our business income was helping from money in the bank, but not really from a borrowing perspective as well.
Correct. Yeah. So you have to have that second PAYG.
Yep. You watched me, I guess, buy property before you ended up pulling the trigger. What was going through your head at the time, I guess, watching me buy property and how that then got to
Honestly,
the person?
honestly, what was
Yeah.
going through my
Yeah.
head, I was thinking, of course he can fucking do this. He's making that much money on the union side. So I'm like, it doesn't surprise me. My thought was he should be doing this. But credit to you, like no one else was.
Yeah.
But my head was like, well, I'd be doing that if I made that much money.
Yeah.
But I wasn't.
Mhm.
And so I had to work with the cards I was dealt, and then learning that it still could be done.
Mhm.
Boom, mind exploded like
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. You just assume this person's doing that because, they've got more money or they're doing this,
Yeah.
but never dived into,
Nev-
could you actually do it?
Exactly right. So stop fixating on what other people are doing and make what you have work.
Yeah. If a young Sparky in the same position as you a few years back came to you today and wanted to do exactly what you've done, what would you tell them?
Just do it. Like don't have any regrets, and that was one of the biggest things with me is everything that I've done to this point, I don't have any regrets. Everything has led to something.
Mhm.
I really love that Infinity Stone um, comment that you made because it is genuinely that. So if you want to do something and you are a Sparky, then do the overtime. Keep saving the bank. Don't spend your money on dumb shit.
Mm.
It will take a couple of years of hard work before you can get to that end, that first property.
Yeah.
But you can do it.
Yeah. Why is building wealth and property investing so important to you? What is a reason why you're doing this?
Mm. Freedom at the end of the day. I want to be able, whether it be a family or whatever it is, I want to have time for them or time
Mm.
for myself. And with the trades industry, you're kind of bound by your body and
Mhm.
also the work that's available to you. And so I didn't want to have be handcuffed by that. I wanted
Yeah.
to kind of call my own shots.
Mhm.
And so by investing in property and getting ahead that way, that's me doing my own thing. Like it's almost like running my own business.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
All right. On to you, sir. Your dad going guarantor changed everything for the first purchase.
Mhm.
Is that conversation is that a conversation, sorry, more tradies should be having with their parents?
Yes. I think if you're young and you're a go-getter and you're wanting to get into the property market, I've had many a conversations with apprentices and tradies. Having the conversation with your parents around what you're doing and why you're doing it and how a guarantor loan can help you get there is a conversation that you've got to have. I think it's so important. But don't just go to your parents and just say, "Hey, I'm doing this. Can you do it?" Like they're putting up a lot on the line as well.
Mm,
So if you're going to go and ask that of them, go with some confidence and some conviction on what you're doing and why you're doing it.
yeah, you have to understand what you're doing,
Mhm.
and you had a plan, so that's why it worked. All right, you nearly walked away from the whole thing after two properties. Looking back, how close did you actually come to stopping?
I came very close. I honestly think it was a turning point when you were buying your first property that
Mm,
changed my mindset because it really kicked back into gear me listening and developing my knowledge further. And I realized two properties wasn't going to get me to the goal that I wanted. And I had in my head that I was set. I was good for the rest of my life with these two properties. And I was going to go travel. And after I bought number three, after seeing you buy the first one, it changed my goals and my vision.
okay, and this is kind of my next question. Almost adds to that,
Mhm.
but most tradies, if they do get one or two properties, they hit a wall on borrowing capacity.
Mm.
So how did you keep getting approved?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, other than my first property, property number two, three, four, and five, I used third tier lenders.
Mm,
So, basically, again, touched on it before, but third tier lenders will give you more borrowing capacity. So, they'll lend you more money, but they'll sting you a higher rate. So, the plan I always had with them is get into the market utilizing them, stomach the high interest rate for a period of time, and then after a year or two, refinance it once I've had some growth and get back on a main bank, which means I get on that lower interest rate while still owning that property. And then the second one is trust. Now, I won't go too deep into it because I'm not an accountant, but for me, I set up trusts. Again, this is an intricate concept, but basically, if you can get a property positively geared within a trust, these new tax changes have thrown a spanner in the works. But I was utilizing that to keep borrowing. So,
it worked for you at the time.
correct, it worked for me at the time, and since going into business and doing different types of lending, it's helped in where we are today. We've both got pre-approval for property number 8 and 9.
Exciting times. All
Exciting
right,
times.
last one. I loved your question to me, so I'm going to steal it. What does financial freedom look like to you specifically?
It's for me, it's never been about having a nice car or having, nice clothes or nice watches. It's always just about living the life that I want to and being able to provide for my future family when the time comes. I was very fortunate that my dad had me when he was older, and I guess they were set up financially. So when we were kids and, other dads were out working, my dad would always pick us up, take us out to play. And looking back, I'm so grateful for that. And I want to be able to give that same experience to my kids one day and be able to travel and do these things that life can provide when you work hard and you stack assets behind you.
I love that. I love that. Could not agree more.
Beautiful.
That's
Well,
it, man.
Brodie, thanks. Great potty. It was
Yeah.
good reminiscing on old times in the journey.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool to look back in hindsight because you don't get too many of these moments, which is awesome. So thanks everyone for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks, guys.